The first type of field we're going to look at is a basic text field. You can see over here that you can add form components. This one was already added in the conversion process, but if for some reason it wasn't added, you can always come over here to text field and draw out a text field. This means you can also create a form from scratch in Adobe Acrobat. It's just a little bit harder than the way we did it with converting from a Word document. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this text field, and you'll see as I move my mouse around, it still wants me to add text fields. You just need to hit escape once or twice to get out of that adding a field mode. So these two text fields are basic text fields that shouldn't be multi-line. If you wanted a multi-line one, you can actually drag this out. Like if you wanted somebody to be able to write a message, so you can drag this out and make it so that it's multi-line so that they can have 4 or 5 lines in here. But that's not what we're going to do for these two. So you have to do a couple of things to every field. I'm going to double click on this field, and it's going to bring up a dialog with the text field properties. So it always needs a name so that you can clearly see that it's tied to this. So it's fine to do parent, legal guardian name. I'm just going to probably put a hyphen in between there. The tooltip is where when somebody hovers over this, it'll bring up a little tip with the mouse. This is for accessibility purposes, so all your fields need to have a tooltip. So usually in the conversion process, it actually adds tooltips for you. If those tooltips though need to be reworked, you definitely can. So I can put in here an instruction that says enter your full name. Okay. So this is saying the field type is text. You can also change it to initial or title or company or email. You can see some of those basic fields over here that you could have added. And those are just sort of formatted so that you can put a full name in there, and it adds some of the formatting that normally you'd see with a full name. But we're just going to go with what's in here because this is pretty basic. So we can leave all these other settings. It's important though to note that there are common properties, especially the required. I don't want somebody to send me a permission slip that doesn't actually have their name because that's not useful. So I'm going to make this one required. Now when I go into appearance, this is also where you can change if you want a border color, if you want a fill color. I think all that stuff kind of convolutes the ease of the form, so I don't really do that. What I do though is I do make it a specific font size, because if they type really, really long and the font size gets to 6-point font, then that's hard for me to read. So I'm going to just leave the font size at 12 for that. This is a position if you want to do precision position, but I don't ever do that either. And then in the options, you can choose if the text is aligned left, center, or right. You can put a default value. That doesn't make any sense for a person's name right now, so I'm going to ignore those. This is where it can check spelling. It's a name, so you can uncheck that because it doesn't make sense for that either. But on here, I don't want it to be multi-line, and I actually don't want it to scroll long text, which means I don't want somebody to type a name so long that I now have to scroll when I look at their form, or that there's a problem with printing. By unchecking scroll long text, that will prevent them from typing beyond the box boundaries. So I don't think anybody has a name longer than this box that I've given them, so I'm going to make sure that they can't go longer than that. So you don't have to close these text field properties when you want to go to the next field. You can actually just click on the next field, and you can see that the settings have already changed for that field. So I'm going to go ahead and say enter your child's name. And then it's fine. This should be required. I need to know what child they're tied to. Appearance, again, I'm going to change it to 12. Position, I don't care about. Options, I also don't want it to scroll long text. And I guess I don't really care if it's checking the spelling or not here. So for those two, that's kind of all you have to do for a basic text field. If, however, I'm going to go ahead and double click this. It is required. It's just not showing the red on this one because it's focused on this one. You can see if I switch back, you can see the red that shows the required fields. But if for some reason, let's pretend this was a multi-line message area where they can type a whole message, just know that that's where you're going to want to do multi-line. And then you can also choose to scroll the long text. But again, I want somebody to print this out. So I just want to limit them to the box shape. So you can make the box taller so they can have 5 or 6 lines, but it's still going to limit them to that area.